Welcome, Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chairs. All right. So I really just, first and foremost, would like to thank you each for the opportunity to briefly address the joint hearing, of course, on an issue that's been very important to me, but also to the many teachers, firefighters, state and local employees who are fighting to ensure their pensions are safe from climate-related risk. And I would also like to thank the hardworking staff at CalPERS and STRS. They've been working very closely with my office, including their leadership and board members who are working tirelessly to ensure a strong retirement future for their members. And I'm also pleased to see many of our pension systems here today, both of our pension systems here today, continuing their ongoing communication with the legislature on our shared goal of expanding climate investment initiatives. And I'm also here today not only as a member of CalPERS who is deeply concerned about the risk that climate change poses. I've had over a decade with the city of Long Beach. Of course, that risk poses to my own retirement future, but also to share the voices of the thousands of hardworking CalPERS and STRS members who are also concerned about their pensions not being safe from the tremendous risks that climate change poses. And I am heartened to hear that the pension boards are taking climate risk seriously by finally adopting initiatives that expand low-carbon investments to help ensure our retirement funds are not impacted by stranded assets or long underperforming energy sectors. And as we all should know, climate risk is financial risk. And so I'm pleased again to see the recent efforts by CalSTRS to move 20% of their public equity portfolio to low carbon indexes and CalPERS's recent commitment to move $100 billion towards climate solutions by 2030. And I look forward to ongoing discussions. Unfortunately, where we deviate in agreement on these initiatives is in the over-reliance on engagement efforts that's been so talked about, and in maintaining investments in the highest carbon emitters. Every California beneficiary should be asking why. Why are our hard-earned dollars investing in the very detriment of our society? Will we continue to ask our firefighters, teachers, and hardworking Californian employees to keep contributing to our wildfire risk, flooding in our farm communities, and extreme heat at our children's schools? These initiatives simply do not go far enough to protect pension holders from the risks of stranded assets, as said before, resulting from the global transition. And as our firefighters are working to save communities from mega fires and classified employees and teachers work in sweltering heat and unsafe air quality in our aging school infrastructure, it's clear that the inaction is putting all of us at risk. PERS and STRS members and retirees have made it very clear that these efforts are not aggressive enough and fail to acknowledge the urgency needed. To simply put it, engagement with unwilling participants has not and will not produce immediate and wide-ranging solutions that are needed to effectively change the behavior of the worst high-emitting companies. Just yesterday, Europe's largest public pension system announced that they had fully exited from $10.6 billion in fossil fuel holdings specifically because their engagement policies have failed. They've acknowledged that. With the catastrophic impacts of climate change already upon us and the latest science calling for immediate emissions reductions over the next 5 years, not even 10 years, 5 years, it is extremely clear that advocacy with high-emitting companies for piecemeal promises simply will not deliver the changes needed. Many of these high emitters that climate engagement plans seek to work with have already begun to actually reverse their climate pledges. Companies like BP are going back on their 2030 emissions commitments. BlackRock leaving an engagement strategy through Climate Action 100, leaving behind effectively $6.6 trillion, or two-thirds of their total assets represented by the very Climate Action 100 that has been discussed today. And ExxonMobil, a company whose net zero by 2050 commitment was often lauded by the pension funds as an engagement victory, only includes in its strategy Scope 1 and 2 emissions in its pledge, when an estimated 90% of their carbon emissions, of course, come from Scope 3. In press statements after helping to elect 2 new directors to Exxon's board, CalSTRS called it a turning point for the company, but just 3 years later, the same company and directors are suing, silencing, and bullying their own shareholders. Together, BP, Chevron, and Exxon, as Senator Smallwood-Cuevas has mentioned, per the Morgan Stanley Climate Index, have an implied temperature rise of over 3 degrees Celsius. That's nearly double by 2050. And while I applaud the efforts, and I really do applaud the efforts, it may not seem like I do, but I do applaud the efforts for voting against ExxonMobil's CEO and board of directors just this very morning. The fact that this has to be done shows shows that many years of engagement with big oil has not changed anything of meaning. And as these companies continue to greenwash the public while nothing of substance changes, they remain status quo. They keep polluting with our California pensions, our hard work dollars. And in a letter I authored in April of this year to the heads of the pension funds, I asked for information about how they measure the effectiveness of their engagement with over 100 fossil fuel companies which they invest in. While CalSTRS did not share answers in writing, CalPERS thankfully shared that their primary engagement tools are proxy votes and share owner proposals, of which there are only a few done each year over the last 5 years, many of which focused on lobbying disclosures. I share this not to shame the funds for their hard and diligent work so far, but to highlight that in almost a decade of engagement advocacy with a handful of fossil fuel companies, there has been no impactful change to the status quo of how companies operate, while our global temperatures continue to march to a point of no return. Our own governor and attorney general are currently suing ExxonMobil, BP, Shell, Chevron, and ConocoPhillips on behalf of our state for misleading the public about climate change for decades. Yet our pension systems, again, simultaneously hold a combined investment portfolio in these companies of $6 billion. I will end by noting that any real climate initiative that protects worker pensions must also contain aggressive strategy to exit these companies now, not later. Thousands of teachers and state workers have made their voices clear and heard on this issue and have resoundingly shared that they do not want their hard-earned retirement funds to be invested in these primary drivers of climate-related financial risk. I urge the committee today and in the future to continue its rigorous oversight of these climate efforts, keep asking the questions, and continue to work with the pension boards and their leadership to ensure that California's retirees are truly safe from climate risk. With millions of acres of forest fires each year, decade-long droughts, classrooms filled with smoke, and playgrounds and workplaces with triple-digit temperatures, at what point will we recognize that there is a public interest and a fiduciary duty and responsibility to abandon engagement and protect our pension holders? I thank you again to the chairs, McKinner and Smallwood Cuevas, our committee members, and of course the consultants, panelists, committee staff, and the members of the public that have so adamantly said no to more investment and to continue to divest our pensions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your remarks, Senator Gonzalez. Thank you so much for coming over.
Thank you.